Good morning, beautiful people, and welcome to another week. This is the Meaningful Mindset, and today I'd love to unpack a topic with you that really speaks to my heart for so many reasons. And the topic of today is neediness. So let's start with the rather not so good part about this. Neediness is really a word that is only used in a negative way in our society. People call somebody needy who, is probably judged in a way where it's like you could do that yourself. You should be doing things for yourself. You should stand up for yourself. You should not be relying on others to give you whatever you need. Yet let's drill down a little bit further. This is all the surface stuff, how the word neediness is used in our society. And then something really beautiful happened last year when I ran the first Loving Life After Loss retreat. And this came up as a topic with the beautiful ladies that said, "Oh, I watched this thing on neediness," and they started talking about it. And instantly, when I heard the word neediness, I felt, what is so wrong about needing others, about needing people, about needing help, needing support, needing recognition? This is really something that I feel needs to be talked about a little bit more from a different perspective and with a different lens on. So I believe that, in particular, when it comes to grief, there is so much that we need. Yet our whole life has just been turned upside down, and we are in a situation where we don't even know where up and down or left or right is, and we don't really know about our actual needs in that very moment. It is usually a very new situation to us, and even if we do have experienced loss prior to that, every loss is very different. And it so depends on the relationship that you had with that person that has passed. So you find yourself in a situation where everything is new. And usually everything just completely slows down for you. My world had completely stopped and everything felt like in slow motion, and the world around me was just still operating at the same speed. So I couldn't catch up. I was not sure what was going on outside of me because my whole focus was just on within. And my whole focus went on, how do I protect my boys? How can I care for them the best? How can I make sure that they are looked after? And my whole life just turned around them. I made sure that they were safe. And I also fell into this mode of feeling very overprotective of my boys naturally because I was now the only parent they had, and I just wanted to be there for them. I just wanted to nurture them and care for them and be there for them. So, as you do as a mom, you fall into this protector mode, yet you don't really think about your own needs. And there were a lot of things that I needed, yet because I didn't have the time to really stop and tune in, they all went into subconscious. They all went completely hidden. The needs were still there, but I could not consciously understand that. I could not consciously connect to that. Everything just went into functioning mode. I literally always describe that as a functioning mode because after Rob passed, all I did was what I had to do. I literally went from one step to the next. He passed. I had to fly to Perth. I had to identify his body. We came back. We were waiting for the repatriation. We were going through funeral homes. I was arranging the funeral, the wake. There was always a step by step by step by step, the paperwork that lasted for months and months to come. Then I happened to write a book along the way and planned a trip around the world along the way. So everything was just doing mode, functioning mode. And I had no idea till years later, or months and months and months later, that what had happened was that my instinct kicked in massively, just like that. I was guided the whole way through. I was literally guided by my inner needs. So, how's that for neediness? How's that for using neediness as a negative word to put upon someone who has got really, really strong needs. I think it is really in order to put a huge perspective shift on the word neediness, because what it actually means is that we have needs. And it is so important to separate that from the negative label that society has put on that. We don't need any labels. In particular, when we're dealing with a loss, when we're dealing with grief, there are so many labels around already anyway that are so unhealthy. They're not helping us in any way. So let's just unstick those labels from the word neediness and go back to what it actually means, the needs that we have. And I strongly believe that we don't allow ourselves enough to really a delve into those needs and really connect to them and name them and be actually announce it to our outside world. Because let's face it, when you're dealing with something like that, when you're dealing with a loss, when somebody passes in your life, you are usually inundated with people who want to help you. And here's the other thing, all these people are around you, and usually it goes something like, oh, please let me know if you need anything. Well, I cannot let you know if I need anything when I'm not really in tune and not really aware of my needs at that time. It is really one of the most challenging things when somebody says to you, when you're in complete overwhelm and you're in such a vulnerable emotional state, to actually go outside of yourself and literally voice that to the outside world, even if it's your closest friends, that just let me know what you need, or whatever it is, let me know. It doesn't work like that. It really doesn't work like that. So the things that work for me the best were when people said, I'm cooking dinner for you Tuesday night, would you prefer chicken or lasagna? That was a simple choice that I could make, to say yes or no, or thank you, or yes, fish, or lasagna, or chicken, or whatever the choices were. And to make it as simple as possible for the people in need, it is really as simple as offering precise help, thinking about what is it that I can do for this person. You need to do the doing work. The other person is dealing with enough. The other person has got no idea how to even voice her needs or his needs. So it is up to us, when we're on the outside and we see that somebody is in need, to not label it as neediness, as something negative, but to step outside of our comfort zone and think about, what is it that I could contribute that would make this person's life a little bit easier, that would make this person feel a little bit more loved, a little bit more supported, a little bit more cared for. We're dealing with a lot of egos nowadays. We're going into, when you look at relationships, even, people are like, oh, you shouldn't be waiting for validation. You shouldn't be waiting for this. You should have that from within yourself. You're a strong, independent woman. Oh, yes, I am. Believe me. Yet I also have my needs. I also am vulnerable, and I also love having other people take care of me. And that goes for any relationship, if that's a friendship, if that's an intimate relationship, if that's your parents, your friends. It is okay to allow yourself to be loved and to be taken care of. So here's the other topic that comes up with that neediness, like society loves to call it. When you get into a space like that and you are a strong, independent woman, and believe me, the strength comes out in adversity. And give me a love or a yes in the comments below if you know what I'm talking about. When you go through an adversity like that, your strength kicks in like you wouldn't believe it. I was really, really surprised by the strength that I felt after Rob passed. I always knew that I was a strong and independent woman. I really was. Yet what happened afterwards was just mind-blowing. I had no idea. Thank you. I had no idea about the strength that I could feel, the strength that I could have in doing anything and everything, to be there for my boys, to support them, to carry them through their darkest hours, and to hold space for them, to hold space for their tears, for their emotions, for their not knowing what to do with themselves. The strength that kicks in is incredible. So the other topic that I wanted to share with you when it comes to neediness is the allowing people in. There is our needs, and there are people that want to help us. And even those who really get it and who offer the help that you actually need, there's still this part that goes like, oh, 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 I'm not really sure if I allow that in, and then tomorrow it's not there, then I'm going to fall apart. So it's easier for me to just hold it upright anyway, even if I've got hardly any strength left. But I just keep standing there and holding everything up by myself, because if I let go and you help me and then you're not there tomorrow, it'll collapse, and then it's even harder to build it back up again. Can anybody relate to that? I believe for me, it was one of the hardest things to learn to allow help in. I was so petrified in terms of if I let go of one of those strings, then everything will just bolt off and run away and collapse. If I let go of that one thing, has anybody ever watched The Jungle Book? That's the weirdest thing, that this is the analogy that comes up for me right now. 100%, thank you. See, you're getting it. I knew you would get that. It's the image that I have is of the original cartoon Jungle Book version, where the King Louis is standing there and holding up his kingdom, and then Baloo the bear comes tickling him, and he's like still holding it, and a whole kingdom is crumbling around him, and he's still standing there holding onto it and laughing because Baloo the bear is tickling him. And that's the image that came up for me right now. He would not let go. He would still stand there even when the whole kingdom around him collapsed, and hold that piece of brick above him. And that is a really great analogy. That is a really funny but great image to explain how it feels to me when somebody comes and offers me to help me to hold that load upright. And when you're already holding something, it feels a lot less like a load than when you have to pick it up from the floor and push it back up again. That pushing it back up again takes so much more strength than holding it. Yet on the other hand, if you hold it for like minutes and hours and days and weeks and months on end, you will lose your strength. You will crumble. So here's a tricky question. At what point do you allow help in? At what point do you open up your heart and trust other people to be there for you? Because this is the exact point. There's this moment of broken trust that happens when somebody so close to you passes. The trust in that you'll always be together, the trust in him, the trust in that he'll always be there for you. And that is something, when I look around in other widow groups, here's my dog coming in again. When you look around in other widow groups, when people start talking about second chapters, moving into a new relationship, that is when the broken trust comes in. I'm not sure if I can ever open my heart to somebody else again. I'm not sure if I can ever let go again, allow somebody in. That is really, I think that's really annoying. Can you guys still hear me? I think I have to close the door, because otherwise we will not be able to have this conversation. I hope this is a little bit better. Lilo loves sitting on the balcony when I do my live videos and bark outside to the world. See, she is not shy in talking about her needs. I love it. It's a beautiful example. Thank you, Lilo. So coming back to that, the broken trust, the broken trust is something that usually everybody experiences on some sort of level, and usually it's on a subconscious level. So we don't even realize, we don't think this through consciously, why we are scared of moving into a new relationship. Yes, there is often the fear of judgment. What will others say? How will others see that? Is it too early? Is it too soon? All these things. But there's also the, how can I allow somebody back into my life? How can I trust someone again to be there for me, to not leave me in my darkest hours? I noticed that a lot when I went through my own healing journey. I'm just finding the live here so I can actually see your comments below. Thank you. Let me just put that down. There you go. Shalina, I knew it. And Cami, absolutely amazing. Heather, thank you so much. So lovely to see you all here, ladies. I can't ever see who is commenting, so I put my phone on so I know who is putting these beautiful comments on there. So where was I? Now I lost my train of thoughts. Yes, the judgment. When it comes to going into a new relationship, but it's the opening your heart again to somebody to let them in. And for me, I've noticed that when I went through my own healing journey, um, I was 20 when I lost my dad. And back then, I had no experience in personal development. I had no experience and no real knowledge about how the subconscious mind works and what was going on in my life after I lost my dad. I went through my own motions, and I went through some counseling after he passed, and it hit me really, really hard because I was such a daddy's girl at that age. Yet, I went through a lot of unhealthy relationships, very short relationships after losing my dad, not realizing how connected that all was and why I did that. It was my own protecting myself from not going too deep into a relationship because I could get hurt and could lose them again. I only realized that years and years after working through it in therapies and counseling and all of that. Then I met Rob, and my whole world just opened up again, and I experienced the trust that I haven't experienced in a really long time, or when it comes to a relationship, maybe even ever. So it was just an incredible gift for me to be with Rob for 13 years and to feel that level of trust. I knew that I could always rely on him, that he'd always be there for me. It was such a beautiful level of trust that I had regained and relearned, and it was the most amazing gift for me. And I remember when we were having discussions about stuff from my childhood that came up for me, and Rob was always so there for me. And he would even say that, it's like, I'd never leave you, I'd always be there for you. Not that I was worried that he would leave me, but he would always say it to me. And then he did. He left. And I know that it was not something that he wanted to do, as in, there was no intention of leaving me, and it was not the point. Yet, your mind doesn't work like that. Your heart doesn't work like that. You are literally like a little girl. You're not a grown up woman when that happens, when somebody passes and, like, okay, yeah, his time was over and there was a soul contract and all these things that I strongly believe in. You fall into this, I'm all alone and you left me. You said you'd never leave me and you left me. I did not do that in a conscious blaming sort of way at all, but that was what happened in my subconscious. Does that make sense? It was this whole, you said you'd always be there and now you're not. And now I'm doing this all on my own. I'm raising our kids all on my own. And I was okay with that from day dot. I just took it on as that's a given. I never went into blaming. I never went into this whole, but why and how and why did this happen to me? I never went there because I have this really strong belief about our soul contract. This was our soul contract and it ended right there. So this is the whole long journey around coming back to this topic of neediness. I went into functioning mode. I went into just taking it on as it is. I took it as a given. And you know how um, Byron Katie says so nicely, Loving What Is. It's a fantastic book. I can strongly recommend it. I really went into this whole motion of loving what is. I had to learn it. It was challenging at times, but I really learned to go into this flow of loving what is. And then when you have established this in your life, where you have your new routine and you make things work for yourself and you know how to tackle life, you start even outsourcing a few things that you can't do or don't want to do by yourself. And I really felt that I did that with more or less ease. There were my moments that I had, my meltdown moments for sure, but I feel looking back now, I've done a fantastic job in taking it on and learning to accept help in and to outsource things I can't do. Yet that is still more on the handyman side. When I got my office door built, my beautiful friend Steve and my neighbor Steve have done that for me, and that is sort of easy to allow that in, or I'm getting better at that. But when it comes to my emotional needs, what do I need to feel supported, to feel loved, to feel cared for? It is really not easy to just say that out loud. This is really something I'm still working on. And I am one of those people who is there for her friends like that. If you ring me at 2 o'clock in the morning, I will make sure I come if I can to help you. And I've always been like that. I've always been really, really good in staying in touch with people and following up and calling them and just being there and keeping that friendship alive, keeping that friendship going. I was always good at that. And I believe it is because I moved around so many times in my life that I always made an effort to stay in touch with people that were really close to my heart. And that was something that I practiced from very little because I moved 22 times in my life, 21 times, 22 times anyway, a lot of times. So I was naturally used to staying in touch with people even when they were really far away from me. Why is there a phone call coming through? Anyway, so in a nutshell, I last night I wanted to catch up with a friend, and I naturally often go into this, but what if they're not available, or what if, and maybe they should reach out first. And I'm like, how old are you, Marie? Like, seriously. And I just wrote, like, I'd really love to see you. And I got back, I'd really love to see you too. Awesome. So we're catching up tomorrow. And I'm like, is that really so hard? It is often that fear of rejection. What if I really need someone to be there for me, to be and feel emotionally supported, and the other person says no? Then I'd rather not ask. And it so often happens like that. And I'm like, why do I even do that? Why do we make it so hard for ourselves to talk about our needs, to reach out and say, can you be with me tomorrow? I need somebody to sit with me. I need somebody to hug me. It is so challenging to ask because we instantly go into, but what if the other person says no? What if she hasn't got time for me? What if he's not there for me? What if they can't be around? So you'll never know if you don't ask. And I know it sounds a lot simpler than it is. It's simple yet not easy. Yet I strongly believe that we need to think about our needs as something so beautiful and important. It's almost like a child that needs to be seen. And when you constantly neglect that child, not really good. So see your needs as your inner child. Nurture her. Be kind to her. Give her what she needs. Hug her. Listen to her. Be attentive. You wouldn't treat your own child like you sometimes treat your inner child, aka your needs. And that is something that is so important for us to shift our perspective around our needs needing to be met. And only you can facilitate that. And that involves other people, but it's you who needs to allow them in. And it's a choice that we can make. It's something that we can learn. It's something that we can foster and get better at. Hey, Dawn. So beautiful. Self-care is mandatory. Absolutely, girl. It is so important. And after I had my little burnout in November, I took it so much more serious than I ever have before. I was never really bad at self-care, but I've really taken it to the next level. You know, I'm booking massages in for me. I've booked me time into my calendar. I've even now booked calendar time in for decluttering my house because it's an ongoing thing. It's not something where I take 3 weeks off and I've done the majority of it, but then there's the ongoing part. And I want to make sure that I make it priority because this is a huge part of my needs to have a beautiful, nurturing environment. So I want to look after it. I want to take care of it because it makes me happy and it makes me feel more at ease and more comfortable. It makes my me time so much nicer when I know that my environment is taken care of and my place is tidy and nice. And I've got a cleaner that comes in every 2 weeks. This is my little piece of luxury that I absolutely love and enjoy because she just, I just really honor her and what she does. It's just really, really beautiful. Thank you so much, Colleen. I really love your feedback, and it's beautiful to be able to talk about these things in the group here and to hear your feedback around it, because I understand that everybody is going through that, not really getting their needs met. Yet it's up to us to learn that. It's up to us to take a risk and speak up. And I understand that in the position that most of us are in, that it does feel like a risk to ask for things, because what if the other person says no? So, what if the other person says yes? And usually that's the case. And usually there are other people that we can ask as well. And if you ask two, three, four people, it's fairly possible that you get at least one yes. Yet it is confronting. I honor that. I want to highlight that. I honor that it is confronting to ask for help. Yet it is such a beautiful act of love that you can practice for yourself. The self love, the honoring your needs, the speaking up for them, speaking out for your needs, and treat your needs like your own inner child. Be kind to them. Make sure that your needs feel heard and seen and validated, and don't label them as neediness. This is something that society maybe does, maybe looks down on, yet don't take that on board. It does not serve you in any way. When we learn to take the neediness, that label, and rip it off and see the beautiful, raw, vulnerable needs underneath and start taking care of them, being nurturing, loving, listening to your needs and attending to them, making sure that your needs are met. This is when our whole world will start to heal. And that's exactly what I wish for you. Love and healing, for you to feel nurtured and taken care of. So I just want to see what the comments are here. No is just no. Exactly. I believe no is just reflecting you to the right person, redirecting you to the right person. Absolutely, Linda. I love that. No is just redirecting you to the right person. That's beautiful. People want to help. Exactly. Especially these days. You know, that is exactly. I'm so glad you brought this up, Gail, because um, the one thing that I have learned when I learned to accept help in is that people often feel so helpless when they watch you go through an adversity like that, that you're actually doing them a favor as well when you accept their help in. It's the one and only thing that they might be able to do for you. I share a really beautiful, very touching example with you. There's this guy up in town. His name is John. I'm going to do a full on shout out for those of you who know him. And he's got a tyre shop. And shortly after Rob passed, I realized that Rob's tyres were almost bald, which really surprised me because Rob was a mechanic by trade. He always looked after his car. I've got no idea how he could have missed that. And I drove up to John, got him to have a look at it, and he put a whole new set of tyres on my car and didn't charge me a cent. And I still get emotional when I talk about it now because John and I were both in tears. We both cried, and he was not even a close friend of Rob's, but he knew him. And Rob has touched so many people, and I know that Rob and John had talked about, you know, him helping out there at some stage, very early days when he started the business. But they always were like great mates and chatted when they were up there, but they were not close friends. Yet John put a whole new set of tires on my car, and it was a whole lot of money. And I struggled to accept that in at first, and then realized, and he said it to me, he said, Marie, this is the only thing I can do for you. Please let me do this. And we were both crying because he had just lost his mum, and he cried and I cried, and it was so emotional. And it was one of the hardest things to do for me, to accept a huge gift like that from an almost stranger to me. Yet I realized how much it meant to him to be able to help. And that was a huge turning point for me, to realize how much it means to other people when you allow them to help you. It's sometimes the only thing that they can do, and the only thing that helps them set their heart at ease. That they feel like, you know what, at least I could do this tiny little thing for her or for the family, for the boys. And that is so beautiful. So think about your own needs as your own inner child. Really start to listen to your needs. Don't label them as neediness. It's not necessary. They're so beautiful. They're so raw. They're often very childlike, the needs that we have. Just to be held, to be supported, to feel safe, to feel cared for. And then think about how beautiful it is when you allow other people to help you and that it's something that makes them happy. So it's such a win-win situation. And I'm really glad that you came along today to unpack this topic of neediness with me. And I really hope that from here on in, we will change our perspective around our needs. I'm sending you so much love. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all your input and your comments. This is Marie signing off. Bye for now.